the Islamic Republic is a problem because they are a point of leverage for Russia and China, and it's a way to keep poking at America whenever you need to make sure that some of America's military resources are focused in the Middle East, right? So imagine if the Islamic Republic was not such a threat to Americans' allies in the Middle East and also to all of these oil and gas coming from one of the most oil and gas rich part of the planet. Imagine if the Islamic Republic was not a problem. There are so many military assets that are now focused in the Middle East that could be focused in the Pacific, where the United States probably would prefer them to be, right? The United States, yeah, they would be freed up. That's like a lot of military assets. So this is what the America First isolationists don't understand, that you're wasting so much money in the Middle East because of the Islamic Republic being there. You're forced. American taxpayer is forced to spend waste so much money in the Middle East, maintaining stability there for to keep the energy market stable because of the Islamic Republic. And any American who says that this has nothing to do with us, I'm pretty sure a destable energy market, you will be experiencing that in the price of everything in United States. Everything, the price of everything is dependent on the price of oil and gas. So this is very much an America First policy to stabilize the Middle East. And right now, it's so much more expensive for America to stabilize the Middle East right now compared to the price of getting rid of the Islamic Republic. And basically, getting rid of the Islamic Republic is very much America first, right? Very much America first. So now that the Israelis have convinced the Americans that this is like, okay, let's hold on to this attack and do something a lot more significant, the Americans are now probably preparing for something much bigger. And this is the reason why the preparation for this war takes longer than a lot of people were hoping for, is because Americans cannot like have less tolerance for losing soldiers, right? Because Israelis have more tolerance because Israelis are fighting for their survival, so they understand the cost of survival, so they understand that this is the cost of war. But for American citizens, this is not for America's survival, right? So why should our soldiers die? Why should our soldiers die when America is pretty much safe? Like, okay, yeah, this is good for our markets, this is good for stability, this is good for trade, maybe, but we're not. America is not going to go anywhere. So America, when they want to get into war, to be again, America is a democracy, so you have to make sure you don't pay a huge political price for going into war. So you have to, when you want to do war at this scale, the preparations need to be long enough and to the degree where you could minimize the cost to American assets and lives of their soldier to the minimum, preferably to zero, right? So you want to make sure that you don't have to come and explain to Americans why some of our soldiers had to die. Preferably, if you could show that we did this, nobody died, that would be amazing, right? So, and remember, this is we have so many examples of this, like during the first Persian Gulf War when Saddam invaded Kuwait. I think it took them 5 months of preparation to eventually attack Saddam and liberate Kuwait. I think it took 5 months, right? For attacking Afghanistan, it took a couple of months. For attacking Saddam again, the second time, it took more than a month. For attacking Panama, it took more than a month. Yeah, so these things take time, and honestly, right now we're in a situation where the more time it takes, the worse it is for the Islamic Republic. Usually it's the other way around. Usually the Islamic Republic is buying time because they're recovering, they're licking their wounds, and negotiations are a way for them to recover and build their missiles and rebuild their proxies. But this time, the Islamic Republic is suffocating, and it's the Americans who are preparing. So negotiations mean more preparation for America and more suffocating by the Islamic Republic and more division within the Islamic Republic and more isolation of the Islamic Republic. So buying time this time is working in the favor of Americans. And this is why the Islamic Republic might actually attack Israel and start the war early, because they're noticing that the more they wait, the more assets, the more military assets are being gathered around their borders. So they might actually, like, if the war is coming, we might as well start early. I saw somebody raise their hand regarding this. Shauna, I think was right.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah.
question, and it
Yeah.
was, and then I did put Shauna on the list as well. You're talking about Witkoff heading over and, getting information from Israel in regard to their terms. How about what kind of, maybe this is more for Jeffrey, but Armin, he's likely also going over there to see what type of intel that they've gathered, that he's not just picking up the phone and getting information on. What could expedite, what information could he potentially receive that can expedite an attack?
Jeffrey. Yeah.
Well, again, the environment is very fluid and changing. So, one of the things that intelligence gives us is intel on the proxy forces the Mullah regime uses as part of their deterrence package, right? So, like the House of Saud, what were they concerned about? They're concerned about like proxies doing things like swarm drone attacks against their refineries and that kind of stuff, like what happened in 2019. There's also reasons why the Israelis hit certain targets in Lebanon a couple of like in the past week or so. Yeah, that definitely helped. That probably almost assuredly, if Israel gives their up to date intelligence on the proxy forces disposition where they're at, that probably would help. Not the least of which is you have a lot of. I see Shauna wants to say something. It's all right, go ahead.
Finish your thought, Jeffrey.
So it probably again would be one of the larger pieces of intelligence that Israel could provide to us via Witkoff or any other member of the administration would be disposition of proxy forces both in the region and abroad. BT, you had mentioned one about how there are a lot of the assets that have been pre-placed here within the United States. That's the reason why we're doing things like ICE and the worst first and all that. I played a role in that. The previous administration, because of its lack of border security, allowed tens of thousands of assets, including members who are openly members of Hezbollah, Hamas, intelligence assets from the Chinese Communist Party, Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, Mullah regime, place themselves here. So that's one of the things we're worried about. That's one of the things we have to guard against. At least
Okay.
that would be my best guess anyway.
Wait, Jeffrey, one question. Is it like my understanding is that Israelis have so much more better information regarding Iran than Americans, and also because they've been involved there, and also the best information that you could get is the information while actively while actively doing operations, because Israelis have been in the field. And also when it comes to attacks on the Islamic Republic, no matter how much information Americans have gathered on themselves, it's not going to be comparable to the information that Israeli have, because they already have done attacks on, on Iranian inside. Well, they were on Iranian airspace, so that's why the Americans need to talk to the Israelis regarding all the information they gathered. Right? Is that correct?
And
Especially
also,
when it oh,
sorry, do we have any reason to believe that Israel may have more or different intel on China than we do? Is that a
all,
possibility?
all actors have their own intelligence assessments on things and they don't share everything with even their allies for good reason. The idea that they probably have some things that we know that we don't know and we have things that they don't know, that's probably a fair bet. As far as Armin, 100%. Like, especially when it comes to proxy forces, not that, US intelligence is not very good. It is. I'm saying because of the experience and focus, the focused nature and operational experience that Israel has because they've been dealing with this existential threat forever. I mean, they have like a unique insight on it, don't they? Same with Saudi intelligence for that matter, particularly when it comes to mullahs proxies targeting their refineries. Yeah, that would be
Yep.
something that would definitely help.
Okay, Shauna,
Next,
you
we
want?
have
Yeah,
Shauna. Yep.
yeah,
Well, I just have a kind of a can you guys hear me?
yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I just have a question. Why do you I am questioning, Armin, why do you think Trump has changed his position so much from his first term to his second term? I mean, as far as geopolitics go, in many ways, wildly different in the way he's responding to different things. I would just be curious about your thoughts about that.
I think
Also, I would say, just as a side note to what Jeffrey said, I've heard from people who I've talked to Israelis who have contacts with Israeli intelligence, and what they would say is Americans do have skills, technical skills in intelligence, but they do tend to lack certain abilities that Israelis have. They didn't really go into what they were meaning. It seems like what they were kind of talking about is they're not Middle Eastern people. Americans are not Middle Easterners, and so there's just subtleties and things like that, even if they're trained on the language and all of those things that are just harder if you're not a Middle Eastern person. You're still gonna be coming from the outside to some degree. So that would just be a comment for Jeffrey. Even if they're skilled in a lot of ways, there's still certain things that Israelis, being natives to the land and the environment, are gonna just understand. Armin, if you wanna answer my question.
regarding Trump, I mean, there are many factors, but I think one of the influential ones is that Trump is now surrounded by people that support him rather than the first term where he had people who he was kind of forced to create a team of people that were not completely in line with what he wanted. So I think this time when he came into power, he just made sure that more of the people who were in his team would basically follow his vision, right? So he had more, like, he had to negotiate more before, and this time it seemed like he has to do less of that, and he gets more of the things his way. Again, it's America, so there's always barriers, there's always checks and balances for sure. But I think in Trump's second term, more things can go his way compared to at least within the White House, there's not that much barriers. There might be from other parts of the government, there are barriers, but at least when it comes to the executive branch, he has removed so many of the obstacles that he had compared to the first term. That's one of the reasons. So I think that's one of the reasons. Another reason might be that he's a lot more ambitious compared to his first term because of all the people that turned against him. So he came back with a vengeance to make a point, it seemed. And also his near death experience with the assassination also had some effect on his philosophical and religious views as well. So there's that. There's so many different factors, right? But these are the ones that come to my mind. But there's so many different
Do
factors.
you think do you think a factor in it, there's two kind of closing thoughts I had. Do you think a factor in it is simply also that in his first term and through his legal battles that he learned how the government actually works and not how he thought it
Yeah.
worked?
Oh, that's another point. Another addition is that the Epstein files, the isolationist wing of MAGA turning against them, had the opposite effect of what they intended to. Instead of they tried to pressure him. First, they start pissing him off when he bombed Fordo, Natanz, and the nuclear facility in Isfahan. They got really angry and they were pressuring Trump to, and Trump was getting annoyed with them. And then
Yeah.
the isolationists were the same people who were really, really heavy on the Epstein file thing. And Trump was getting really annoyed with them focusing on the Epstein file. So instead of being able to use that, Trump basically said "fuck you" to all of them, and he basically jumped into
So,
the arms of the neocons. Or yeah, go ahead.
so
What we
one
call
thing
it.
about the Epstein stuff that I found really interesting, I was listening to a commentary person talk about this. They pointed out that the Epstein files thing, it was just a journalist a MAGA journalist who kind of commented that they were talking to some working class guy in one of these small towns or whatever, and he didn't know this, like, working class guy who's really Trump's base, didn't really know who Epstein was. Like, he'd heard the name, but he wasn't really super familiar. And she pointed out that part of this Epstein stuff, even though it is a problem and it's like a lot of corruption, it's also very much kind of terminally online politics. rather than the kind of nuts and bolts Americans that actually kind of go to the polls, was kind of her thinking on it. And Trump, I think, actually has a good idea of who his base is that actually go to the polls, and it's not just the commentary class that's kind of terminally online. So that might also be a factor of why the Epstein thing wasn't that big of a deal to him, because to the average voter, it may not matter to the average voter. I'm not talking about nerds like us. I'm talking about people like
Yeah,
my
I think it
husband.
shouldn't matter. I think that people have made so much out of not. I mean, Epstein himself was a corrupt motherfucker and who molested children. But I think that when it comes to the other weird things that they were doing, most of it, even though it was like morally questionable, was just like we haven't seen a single other person, evidence for a single other person having sex with children other than Epstein himself. And people say like, oh, he had 10 people.
Andrew,
Yeah,
Prince
he had 10.
Andrew, Prince Andrew.
Oh, Empress Andrew. Yeah, those are the two people. But everybody else was either doing some, I don't know, maybe questionably sexual stuff, but adults mostly, right?
Weird, creepy
But
financial stuff and just morally not illegal, but definitely more immoral things.
yeah, Stephanie, we're gonna come to you. I know you have some opinions about this, but just one last point. I think a lot of the focus on Epstein is more an anti-Israeli thing than an
Oh,
anti-pedophile thing.
I
It's more
thought
of
that
an
for
yeah,
8 years.
yeah,
I figured that out, like, yeah. I thought that for 8 years. I was like, if he was not Jewish, they wouldn't give a fuck about this. That's literally how
yeah,
I felt about it, and that
yeah,
doesn't mean that he's not evil, but
yeah.
that's
He was.
completely why. It's just because he's Jewish, in my opinion, or at least that's like 99% of it, in my opinion. There's a lot of people who wanna get in there, so I'm gonna shut up now.
Okay, we have about 15 minutes until the 2 o'clock, the hour mark. So Stephanie and Francesco, I see your hands. Please make it very brief.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Epstein file and why they're popular because this is mostly, I think, used and weaponized to be against the current Trump administration because there is always allegation that he was involved. It's an anti-establishment, anti-rich people, a communist way of attacking everybody. Is like, okay, we need to do a revolution because everybody's implicated, everybody's a pedophile. Our administration can be blackmailed by all the states of the world. It's a shame that those people are in power and in charge. So that's why the Epstein files are popular. And I think, yeah, there is also something that has been somehow mismanaged in the way the files have been released. If somebody is into conspiracy theories, files that be redacted, now YouTube channels that get demonetized, or so, yeah. So there is a lot of things to that. I don't think we know the entire truth. And when it comes to pedophilia, I mean, you don't have to say when it happens. It's like, okay, just go and get a massage. Here is the bed, and then you get the compromising video. You don't ask those things. Even the people that were involved, they were not fully aware. Mostly, they didn't ask questions. I think most of the times, some of them did, but once you have the video, you have something on them. You don't have to be
So,
explicit about, yeah.
okay, so 2 points regarding that. This is anti people in power. For many of the people we're talking about, that is the same thing as saying being anti Jew. So we're like, oh, this is against the people who are controlling the world, the globalists, the people in charge, the people behind the scene. Yeah, that's basically the Jews, right? In the minds of many of these people that we're talking about. I mean, not all of them, but for a lot of them, that's the same thing as Israel, Zionist Jews. They go hand in hand, right? We don't know the entire truth. Yeah, I agree with that. Anything is possible, but we cannot have a view until we get the evidence for it. The problem is that a lot of these people have made up their mind. A lot of people have made up their mind that if you're on that list, you have had sex with a child, right? So it doesn't like you could be like somebody that was fixing Epstein's kitchen and he emailed you like, "Hey, when are you going to finish the project?" "Oh my God, you're on the list. You had sex with a child." because you were renovating Epstein's kitchen or at some point. Like, I don't know. Like, if you're on the list, he
No,
has
but the
sex with
question
you.
is
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
how much are you simping to be in that island? And after you know that he was convicted for sex charges, it's like, why are you so desperate to, keep your minds out and be part of it and be
Yeah,
crazy
I
with
don't,
the
I don't,
parties
yeah,
and
I know, like, you could be like, but I don't think that's good enough. Yes, for example, Elon Musk wanted to go to Epstein Island really badly, even after Epstein was convicted of, basically child sex trafficking. Okay. So is that weird? Is that like fucked up? Yes. But does that tell us that Elon wanted to have sex with a child? No, like, it doesn't. I'm sorry. Like, maybe he does. I don't know. But it doesn't really tell us that. It's just weird and like bizarre. And obviously, he shouldn't have done that. But you cannot, people can't come up with the conclusion based on that, oh, Elon must be into having sex with children. Like, I'm not saying he's not, but again, it's not enough evidence. It's not like, it's not like saying, like, well, I couldn't think of any other reason why you would want to do that. Yeah, not being able to think of a reason is not a good enough reason, in my opinion.
A reminder
By
to
the way,
everyone that once the recording is done and Armin is out, we can carry on this conversation or any other. Generally, people stay an hour, sometimes two, after Armin leaves. And so just wanted to remind everyone of that as well. Also, if anyone had a question that they want not recorded, please let me know in the chat. That way we can finish a bit early and make sure we get to that as well.
yeah. By the way, guys, I just want to make sure that I say this. Like, I'm not saying all of this because I'm on the list. Okay, somebody go check if I'm on the.
Have you done a
Right.
search? I'm about to go do a
Yeah,
search.
yeah. Go do a search. Maybe I should be saying this even more aggressively if I'm there. I saw Eric raises.
Stephanie had a question, remember, and she had audio issues.
Sorry, Eric. We'll come to you, Stephanie. Did you fix your?
No, but she put the question in the chat.
Oh,
Do you
what
want
was
me to
her
read it, or
question?
do you
Let's
want
do
to?
Stephanie and then go to Eric.
Yeah, you
Sorry,
can
Eric.
read the question. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
I'll
he
read
can
it.
read the question. I think it's
Uh,
working.
Oh,
I don't
you're
know if you can
here.
hear me.
Your mic is working.
Hi.
So why don't you?
I know,
Hi.
I
Okay.
had to give it extra permission.
Okay.
um,
Go ahead.
but actually Danny has the question that I wrote out. I have many questions, but he can read it out because I can't find
Okay,
it now.
Danny.
It's just yeah.
okay. Do you think
Okay.
IRGC is saying no again as a chess play to cancel and then agree to more? But really, nothing I've heard they are so good at this and clearly played the West. I just hope and think Trump knows every ploy, so negotiate because IRGC has no cards, but is very good at bluffing.
Yeah, so that was the IRGC's game was always to basically keep saying no until the Americans are desperate, and then they give the minimum. That was IRGC, like the Islamic Republic's playbook. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Islamic Republic, not just IRGC, because okay, actually, we should be saying the Islamic Republic, not IRGC, because the person that you're negotiating with is Khamenei. Okay, not the IRGC. So, and even though if they pretend that other people are part of the negotiation, like Arakshi, nobody, when you're negotiating with the Islamic Republic, when it comes to the nuclear or the missiles, the only person that you're negotiating with is Ali Khamenei.
Well, my part of it. So then I was just because I was having flashbacks to the 12-day war when I was also here. That like I remember they were negotiating and then they said, "Oh, we're not going to do this." Like I don't remember which thing it was related to, but they basically like pulled out and then the Americans as an American get like desperate and then they're like begging them to come back, which is what happened. So I just it didn't
So,
happen the last time, but I was just wondering if you think cuz they're saying, "Oh, we're not coming if it's only nuclear." Trump
so
won't fall for that, right?
no, my sense is that the Islamic Republic was really good at playing Obama and Biden.
Oh,
But it
yes.
seems like Trump is playing with the Islamic Republic and they're really frustrated. I think now it's the other. I think they find
It's
Trump
harder.
very unpredictable, and I think Trump is playing with them, and they don't know what's happening.
I
Like,
wonder
they're
if
very
they read his
confused.
book about the art of negotiations because I realized he's really good at it, and if it leads to this would be like the ultimate. this would be the best
Yeah, a
thing
lot of the things that
possibly.
people don't like about Trump actually works for him in negotiation, like the unpredictability
Totally.
and the crazy statements that they sometimes make that a lot of people hate. When it comes to negotiations, those are very helpful because it
Yeah.
confuses the
Especially
fuck out
with
of the.
him dealing with
Because,
Arabs. I feel like he's the
well,
Yeah.
closest thing to an Arab in the White House that we have.
and he's
Yes,
worked in
yes,
this area before as well. But also, I've heard from Israelis who also are way better at negotiating than me that Iranians are like the best. So I just worry like that
yeah.
they're gonna play the Americans.
Tr-
Okay, that was all.
Trump negotiates like a Middle Eastern. That's why he's
Yeah,
the
it's
only one that
awesome.
understands the language of these
100.
people.
Totally. I mean, really, it's so different. Like you really have to. I don't know. I thought
Right,
people that worked in this area would like know better, but yeah, no one
right.
else. Everyone's so polite as if we're still in like Connecticut or something. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah. I hope so. I have gotten new alerts about stuff happening, so who knows.
okay.
But I was
Uh,
just curious what you thought. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. So we got
Thanks,
Eric
guys.
and then Roman. Eric?
I was just going to go back here on this topic a little bit here about the underage girls. Now, grew up traditional 18-year-old, In our country, people that do this underage crap, whatever it is, they're scum of the earth. They go to prison, they're frequently beaten and murdered in prison. I don't really, like Cash Patel says, you can't be the executioner when you're in prison. Okay. However, I'm going to tell you something. We have a very, very hard line towards this stuff. Tom Homan, bless him. Nobody ever wants to talk about all these most of these girls that happen, they're from broken homes, 12, 13-year-olds are out on the street. They get wrapped up in a bunch of this stuff. I feel for them. But, we just have to kind of keep in perspective. Like, we have a religious sect here in America. Now, this is funny too, because people don't realize it, but here in America, there are some Christian religious sects in America that believe in polygamy. Okay. There are some in this same sect here, you guys are with underage girls all the time. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. They play this game with the federal versus state kind of stuff. So I don't know what to do. It's all nasty and it's got to end. And the Mullahs and all this stuff here, that's a big issue. And we do what we can and we got to keep fighting, so that's basically what I was gonna say. We're a little past the topic, but anyway, I'm good.
Thank you, Eric. And then Roman?
Say that I think that Trump, the reason why he's doing the negotiations, what could be seen as a little bit wishy washy, but different signals all the time, is to give time to do the organization of the military in the region, to be ready to do the complete thing, and to try to put extra pressure on the RGC to maybe be a little less brutal than they otherwise would have been.
I don't think IRGC's calculations changes when it comes to brutality against the people based on Trump's threats. I think they just make more attempts on hiding it. But I think that, in fact, I think they're not going to, because for them, this is a matter of survival. They're not like, when they're killing people, is because the people will kill them if they don't, right? They think that their understanding is that if the Iranian people get the upper hand, they will be torn into pieces by the hands of the Iranian people. So this is not a matter of like, oh, if somebody comes threaten us. The greater threat to the Islamic Republic is the Iranian people. So they're
No,
going to go all out.
understand that. I just meant that Trump knows how long it would take to organize enough forces to do what he wants to do. And in the meantime, he's trying to get all out of Iran, meaning maybe less brutality, maybe playing the time until he's ready, until they're ready.
I don't know if that's his calculation, because the Islamic Republic will only like pretend to do less brutality as part of the negotiation. So they wouldn't do less brutality what if they don't even are not if they're not even before a deal is made. In fact, I think they're going to try to do maximum brutality so that they have something to give up to have as a leverage, right? So if you're sitting at a table with the Americans, right, and if one of the things that they want is less brutality, then you're going to be like, okay, let me maximize my brutality so that I have something to offer at the table to stop, right? So it might actually work at the other way around, unfortunately. The only way to stop the Islamic Republic's brutality is not by making them stop with negotiations. The only way to do that is by the ending the Islamic Republic. That's the only thing you could do to stop the brutality of the Islamic Republic, by getting rid of the regime. Yeah.
Okay.
Reducing brutality from the Islamic Republic is only reducing visible brutality, not reducing brutality. They will just try to move it into somewhere that is not visible.